Hello again, guys. It's Gregola Productions here, and welcome back to the GPWS, where we are going to reassemble our Palm Dairies advertising clock from Dairy Products Associated Advertising, whatever the heck it's called. Let's just read that again. I think this one claims it's Associated Advertising, and we'll find the other plate for that later. Oh, there it is. Dairy Products Advertising. So, yeah, no, this is an interesting little brand here. It's almost impossible to find, at least in my research, which hasn't gone very far. It seemed to be almost impossible to find anything on this company. So it seems they've just kind of faded out of existence. Dairy Products Advertising. We're just going to refer to it as Dairy Products Advertising because we all know that's not even, I don't know, this is part of it somehow. I'm not sure if there was a second firm or if the same firm had two names. Really could not tell you. As for this motor, we discovered in the last episode that this comes apart and that refrigerators, I think I said Frigidaire and Whirlpool, pretty sure both of those brands use these motors in their ice makers, or at least a different version of them. Very similar design, same company. And the name, I think I did actually find the company name here, but it's escaping me right now. This stuff, unless you can find a new motor for cheap, it's better to just convert this to quartz. I know that, or not convert it to quartz, sorry, but convert it to quartz electric. So that would be with it would have a sweep second hand like that. Well, this hand's not on right now, but it'd have a sweep second hand. It would not go tick, tick, tick. It would be electric, so you could still have the lighting wired up. Yeah, for right now, I can't find affordable, well, there's parts available, but like there's the odd listing on eBay or something, but it seems like you're just better off not buying new old stock, or unless you find a brand new one, just go the quartz electric route. I keep calling it that. Pretty sure that's what it is in one way or another. As I said, you'd want the ones that Mark the clock guy was using. I'll link his video in the description. He had one of these clocks. It was actually a Landshire. Had a Landshire motor in it, and he just converted it to that because, you know, he couldn't get it to start for one reason or another. So, yes, this works fine, though. So we're going to use this again. And this motor company here, I don't know if I found the name. I think I found the name for it, but I don't know. These guys seem to be pretty anonymous as well. So there's basically little to no information about any of this. And as you can see, this is made of cardboard. I'm going to film myself reassembling this monstrosity. I mean, a piece of advertising history. People I know don't like the look of this thing. They don't like that. I can see why, but you know, it's still neat in my eyes. So I don't know if I'm gonna sell this. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do. Yeah, we're gonna see what exactly we're gonna do. I'm gonna keep them both for now, and we shall see what kind of happens here. And as you can see, I've got a Stanley Synchronous timer here out. What does this have to do with anything? Well, not really much, but in this time between, there goes the switch. In the time between the last part of this video here, this series here, and the episode you're watching now, I've kind of got a fascination with these a little bit. This one I've had for a while. I don't know, it's just electromechanical devices like this, like these types of timers. This is basically the last synchronous type of clock you can buy commercially, which is interesting to think about. If you really wanted, you could use this to tell time, but obviously no one does that. People use these things to power lamps and their Christmas lights. But yeah, there's the inside of it. I don't know how you get this thing apart. Those gears look almost inaccessible thanks to all this stuff. Yeah, it's cheap. It's well, cheaper. I mean, this is definitely a better setup than this, and I think this has already lasted and will last a lot longer than this, possibly, before a gear strips or breaks or something like that. And that's just talking about the gears. I don't know about any electronics. Granted, it's not that complicated. I see a resistor in there, but other than that, I don't see much. So yeah, these things are interesting. I don't know if I'll make any videos on these. if this guy ever needs a service for whatever reason, then I'll definitely record something about this. But anyway, that's irrelevant right now. Yeah, we'll get back to the dairy products advertising stuff. Also, in just a bit of a timekeeping update for the Bulova here, or clock number 1 as we were calling it, this thing has actually gained like 2 minutes over the span of a week. And as you can see, the seconds hand isn't sliding down the dial anymore like it used to, so that's good. But I think as it was going down like that, oh, interesting. As it was going down like that, I think it might have possibly pulled the gear train a bit forwards, a bit more forward, just as it was sliding down for like a second or two. I think it might have pulled that along just a bit, and that kept happening over the span of a week to the point where it actually gained just a little bit of time. It is currently 2 p.m. right now, and this clock is displaying 2:02 p.m. With an electric synchronous clock like this, you want this to be absolutely perfect. So I'm just going to take the seconds hand off. This isn't helping us right now. I'm probably going to get... I know, that just went sliding everywhere. This, I might use some Loctite on, or some very, very light gluing. I don't want that thing permanently attached to the dial. So we're just going to adjust that to the way it should be. And then we'll see how accurate it is with just the minute and hour hand on there. And hopefully nothing drags it, you know, makes it faster for some reason. Okay, so back to this. So what we're gonna do here, I think I'm just gonna, I've already given this thing some oil off camera with those gears. I literally just stuck my mobile oil in there and just kind of gave it some, and it seems to be working fine now. So I'm just gonna leave that there. I don't see really a point to giving it more. And yeah, this thing's got oil on it, so. And same with this was oiled up too. Yeah, this is definitely a later coil assembly than the other one. I'll just put them together. Yeah, if you look at it like this, I mean, this was actually a pretty half-decent system, you know. Hey, you need a clock in something? Consult this. And look at that, a clock, or a 1 RPM synchronous motor there. So now what we'll do, we'll wire all this up. So as if I remember correctly, this all went through here. These wires went through here. They went through there, and then they're in this little brass box, which is basically just a support stand for these things. And yeah, it's literally what it looks like. Alright, so with our wire nuts attached, this is a fairly cheap and cheerful system. You see you just got the motor there, and that can go wherever. If we look at our sockets, there's actually a slight difference between these and the other guys. I see the screw is still in there, obviously, to mount it to this piece of brass. But there's no, what's different about this one is the terminal doesn't have a blob of solder connecting, you know, like the other one did. There was a blob of solder here, and then it was connected there. But I guess everything has just been, this might be a slightly newer version of this, I don't know. Well, it definitely is a slightly newer version, but it's not, oh, unless it's soldered under the, let's see where the wiring goes in. Oh, it looks like, oh, this looks like it's even harder to install. This looks like it was soldered under that, under this terminal here, under that tab, or whatever you want to call that. Terminal tab? I guess I'll call it a tab, because that's what it is. Oh, that's not fun. Could you imagine? That the other one was already hard enough to get it in that hole there. Getting it under this tab? Wow. Okay, I hope this comes apart somehow. Yikes. I'm sure it's doable, but, you know, like with this setup, you definitely don't have to. That's my electrical tape I put on there. I can't even remember why I installed that. It's not a big deal. This is the same thing here. Maybe in the older series I show why I took electrical tape and put it there. Who knows? Obviously I didn't feel comfortable with the original stuff. There's a rubber grommet there for a strain reliever. That's as hard as rock. I don't think that's gonna, well, it's gonna do strain relief, but it's not, whatever, I'm just gonna leave it. It doesn't matter about that. And these wire nuts are nice and tight, nothing's moving. So that's good. This is ready to go now. So we can just install this back on here. So it's literally, you've got a big piece of cardboard to work with, And they give you that. Oops. This motor hangs out the front here. All the wiring for the wire nuts goes in there. And you know what? Shoot, I think there's another, here, let's just stop for a second. I think this goes together a certain way. I remember there's like wing nuts or something with a little star pattern. These go on here somehow. Or not wing nuts, sorry. I don't know what I'm talking about. Okay, yeah, you know what? I gotta put this guy on. We haven't... Okay, yeah, so to rephrase, we gotta build our movement completely. So this is the gear train. Same exact gear train as the other one, except for one difference that I think you guys are gonna find funny. And we'll pull out the oil and we'll get started. I'm not being too specific here with my oils. I've just got the Mobile OW-40. We're gonna use that. I'm just gonna give it one little drop of oil. And we can see here as we investigate this, okay, I'm going to wipe that off with paper towel. Yeah, I think I'm going to give this thing a brief little wipe off with some paper towel. That would be probably a wise idea. I don't want any old, well, you want to try and get rid of as much old oil as you can with these things. As you can see, I didn't drill out the rivets and go that far with it where... You know, I'm actually taking this riveted together gear train apart. Or even going as far as to dunk it in alcohol. I know I didn't do that either. I'm literally just using this as is. I don't really see a point to that. This thing, because of the speed that gear turns at, it runs at such a low... There's basically no friction in this system. There's very little friction, and... I don't see a point in going in there and giving it a deep clean. So if this was any other clock, like if it was a Telecron or something, absolutely, I'd pull the entire thing apart. But I don't want to do that with this because there's not much to pull apart. Like I've literally just got, you know, rivets here. I don't like doing dunk and go type things where, or if anyone remembers a Gabout. Does anyone remember that? Who knows? That was a term I had in an old video of mine. Anyway, yeah. I don't like doing dunk and go. Gabout is basically the same thing where you just stick it in there, stick it in some alcohol or something, and then maybe give it a rinse off with a wipe down with a toothbrush or something like that. We're not even going to do that here because... You know, there's no friction, and yeah, it's just not something that I think we really need to do that with. This is a very industrial movement. See, there's our first gear on the train. That's brass. No fiber gears in this, which is nice. I see that rust up there. That might be some rust in there. That looks like it just turned... And I think I may have said this earlier, but yeah, they've left this gear, which literally just does nothing on the train. This was a setting knob at one point. I almost guarantee you that it was. Look, I can actually use it still. Oh, wow. Yeah, this wheel here, yeah, you can use this to set the time. That is hilarious. You can see that turning there. Oh, yeah, that was a setting knob, but they snapped it off. For some reason, they decided that it didn't need to be on there. We're just going to add a little bit of drop of oil there. Add one for this wheel here. We're going to add one. Where else are we going to add one? We're going to add one there. Yeah, this is one of those things where it really was not meant to be worked on extensively. You know, that's why you see kind of a cost-cutting theme here. Oops. It's not something that was meant to really be serviced. And it's more of a disposable system, really, to some extent. Okay, I think that's okay there. I don't think there's anything else I can really oil. Maybe these pipes just a little bit. Am I supposed to oil these? I can't remember. I'll give it a dab of oil. I'll give all these guys a dab of oil a little bit. Yeah, we're not going to give it too much. And of course, there's the oil from when I oiled the gears last time, yes, I was not supposed to oil that. You can see there's oil shining up in those, in here. Oil shining in there. That's not right, but anyway, I'm not too worried about that. Again, this is such a low friction environment. There's really nothing happening in here. I see some hair. We'll get that out. Yeah, this is not something that's really meant to be worked on. It's kind of sad that advertising clocks went this route. They're so pretty, you know. They're so great in what they are, but they're just not, a lot of the time, at least the later ones anyway, are not meant to be worked on. And this would be no exception to that. Let's see, where's my gear? Where my gear goes in. There it is. There we go. Yeah, so it just fits on like this. Oops. Somehow. There we go. There we go. It goes in somehow like that. Yeah, it's sad, but as is with the cheaper, actually I'm not even cheaper, just later clocks, because you could arguably say that like Telechron rotors are cheaper. Somebody asked me, why in the world would you want to put a Telechron rotor in the oven? I told him to go watch the series I did on Telechron, on the Telealarm Junior. But who knows if that person actually went to go watch that, so I'm just going to explain it again. The whole oven fiasco was related to Telechron rotors seizing up and you not being able to take them apart, or at least not conventionally anyway. So I thought kind of a get around for that would be just to stick it in the oven, and then that would loosen up all the old grease and oil inside. And then you would have a then you could, I see there's a that says Synchron there, registered. I didn't notice that serial number until right now. Sorry guys, I'm going all over the place here. 202-52-814 Synchron registered, or Synchron registered. Interesting. Is there anything else on here? I don't think the other one has that. Okay. What is that? 1 RPM? 824. Interesting. Okay, yeah, anyway, that was supposed to seize up the Telechron, or unseize the rotor, sorry, and then it would get new oil put in as it was cooling down through, there's a little wheel on the front of this. The Telechron had the same kind of a deal, so you just put new oil in through there. Yeah, that was my strategy, and it worked. So, yeah, if you want an extensive explanation there, you go and actually watch the series for that. So, and of course, there's how that fits on. And, yeah, okay. Now we just stick, yeah, see, you can see how this all works, you guys. Maybe I should skip this and get to the cardboard, because you guys have already kind of seen this already. Playing around with a literal cardboard and plastic movement. Yeah, I'm literally just screwing these nuts on by hand. We'll just skip this. Yeah, so those nuts just bolt on there. You got your fairly clean wire set up. It's not a bad design. Well, it's okay, you know, this has tabs on it. And then this just fits into this piece of cardboard. And away you go. Or so I thought. Here, let's just turn this around. There we go. So that fits in there. And then what you do is you bend your tabs. This is the right way around, right? I think it is. Yeah, I think I got this the right way around. Okay. I was kind of assembling this thing half upside down, half not. We've got it flipped over now. We'll just bend these down by hand. I'm not going to use pliers for this. I hope these have a fairly good ability to be bent back, because, you know, you want to have future people come in here and work on this just like I have. So at the end of the day, if you can get over the rotor and everything being riveted together, that's a fairly clean setup. And you have holes here for your incandescent bulbs. We're not using the incandescent bulbs. We're using like the EcoSmart snow cone things that are literally 97 cents, 97 Canadian cents at Home Depot. Might as well use that. You know, that's what's running this. So we might as well use that. So this is all good. I don't think I'm going to reinstall the warranty in the same place. I think I'm just going to stick it over here. I think that's good enough. I'm not too concerned. I don't want it on there because it might get stained with oil like the other one did. So And as you saw on the other one, if you're really paying attention to this label, I installed it like over here somewhere. I didn't put it back on the actual movement because there's oil everywhere on everything. So, oh, you know what? Might have to get some new tape for that. Anyway, you guys get the idea. Reassemble this cover. I believe this piece of plastic goes over this in some fashion. I'm not entirely sure how. And then this guy here. You know what I've just discovered? This piece of plastic would have gone over that originally, I think. So we're just gonna get some clear Gorilla Glue and just lay that on there quick. Just get that on like that. There we go. This stuff dries really fast too, so I'm not worried about that getting on anything. Okay, so now, so after wiping that down and making sure that's dry enough to actually put on here, you know, get this on. And there's no screws for this. How you attach it is you have this tin, I think it's actually made of aluminum, this rim here with a kind of a, you can see the other side, these are held together with tabs. It's got that steel kind of lip on it. So you just kind of slide it on here. And then get the cardboard and the plastic in the lip on the underside. It's kind of a bizarre design. I've never seen one like this before. It can be finicky to get together. And I highly doubt I'll be able to film a lot of this. But yeah, you gotta get it under that lip. It's very bizarre. I hope you can kind of see what I'm talking about. You have to get it under that. There's a lip there, and you gotta slide both the cardboard and the plastic in there. And I can't even really film this because of the angles I have to do this at. That's kind of hard to film, but yeah, there's the rim there, and it's got the plastic and the cardboard in there. It takes a lot of fiddling. And as for the tab on the end, that basically had to be pressed down sort of thing. So it's not the greatest case in the world. It looks nice, but it's definitely not something that you want to get in there or want to go in there, you know, too often. To change the light bulbs, obviously this panel comes off and you have access to your bulbs. You don't need to go and take the movement apart every single time. And if the motor ever had an issue, you don't need to replace all the wiring. You just need to disconnect the wire nuts. There's these 4 wing nuts here. And of course, there's the money shot right there. And from some of the research I was able to do on these guys, they actually make signs too. Not just electric clocks, but signs, lit up signs. Some didn't light up. You know, they're all very basic. They probably all use the same exact design that this one does. Got some heating vents, or cooling vents, sorry, through the top and the bottom. This wiring was my doing. I've just got a piece of wire and I've just, this is how you hang it up right here, just through the vents. This thing is very light, as you can imagine. This is plastic metal, you know, there's not much to this thing. And to get the, and I noticed the Bateman's Jewelers clock doesn't have this, but there is supposed to be, or at least there was on that one, there is a nut here that screws onto the movement, and it basically sticks the movement to the plastic front here. This is missing on that. So somebody at some point, you know, was playing around with this thing and they lost it. Who knows what the heck they were doing? Maybe they tried to get the, I couldn't tell you. Maybe they broke it somehow. I don't know. Maybe it was like this where that piece of plastic popped off. But anyways, you can see I've just glued it back on. This isn't, you know, perfect. Obviously, this is faded. The add on this is fairly faded, but that's okay. I still like it. Yeah, and there's that nut there. So this is all attached now. So we can basically put it on the wall and stick our hands on it. Okay, so that brings us to the conclusion of our 2 advertising clocks here in this series. Both made by the same advertising firm, and this one's a little bit newer than our guy over here. Both are pretty hard to come by. Both are probably only local to where I am, more or less. I don't think you'd be able to find this in the US, either one of these, because this firm seems to be more interested in very kind of local Canadian advertising, and local as in local in the country. I'm sure a few of these got over to the United States, but it's probably not common over there. So these are two very obscure advertising clocks. It's pretty nice to find two of them by this company for fairly decent prices. They weren't that expensive. I mean, Palm Dairy is not, probably none of you guys watching this, unless you are from Canada, would even know what that is. A lot of people that I showed this to for the first time, they had no clue what Palm Dairies was. They had never heard of it. You know, it was just a thing that probably got bought out in the, well, this clock is from 1978. They go back to the 1950s at least. They probably go back even earlier than that. But, yeah, there's still more research to be done here on both of these. I'm just thrilled that we got them both running. And as you can see, they're both wearing their second hands. This second hand here, the fin on the back was actually broken off for the longest time. And I know it probably needs to be repainted red. It was a red second hand. This fin broke off. I used JB Weld epoxy to just get that back on there again. So that epoxy is still drying a little bit, but it's been sitting all night. So I think at this point, you know, after at least 12 hours of drying, basically, I think it's pretty good to use again, you know, in this particular state. Oh, I hope this isn't falling off. For a second there, it looked like it was. Maybe I don't have that on there perfectly straight, but it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. It just has to look good, which I'd say both of these do. Some people think this is really ugly, this design. I don't think so. That second hand really improves it. The second hands improve both of these designs. It seems like the second hands are also not interchangeable with each other. That second hand, despite the fin being snapped off earlier, if you watched my original series back from 2019, you'll know that the fin was broken off there, and I tried to glue it and stuff, but I didn't know about epoxy at that time, so now we're all good to go with our epoxy. But anyway, that's not what I was getting at. This hand I tested does not fit on that clock, and that hand does not fit on this. So I don't know. I thought the threads were the same size. Maybe I wasn't trying hard enough. Really, this hand looks better on this, and that hand looks better on that there, even though it may look like a little tiny little toothpick type second hand. But it's better than not. I mean, they don't look terrible without the second hands, but you know, it just adds to the whole clock, just seeing the second hand move. And if you're wondering why the hand isn't falling down the dial anymore, it's your guess is as good as mine. I just screwed it on just now, just for filming this, and we seem to be getting good performance out of it. And also, I was right, weirdly enough, earlier when I said that this hand falling down the dial like that, that it ever so slightly sped the clock up, just enough for it to gain like a minute or two over the course of a week. So after running this thing basically all week with no seconds hand, it didn't gain any time. It ran exactly but as a synchronous clock should. And this guy over here never had that problem. The older Bateman's Jewelers clock, ironically, this one has lived a rougher life than the Palm Dairies one, even though that's only a few years younger. So which one are you guys more a fan of? This clock or that one? This is a little bit more unorthodox in advertising clocks, you know? Maybe the Canadian Watch and Clock Museum in, I think it's Bedford, Ontario. Maybe they'd have a few of these hanging around. They probably do. I think their website mentions this firm a little bit, so they might have one or two of these guys hanging around. But yeah, so we've got two fairly bizarre advertising clocks that are obscure, specifically Canadian, and have movements that can be found or traced back to refrigerator icebox movements, or sorry, not icebox movements, icebox motors. Honestly, guys, do these things even have like a movement technically? Like, don't these things use a motor at this point? Because again, that line between a clock and an appliance, just a basic electrical appliance that you know have. I mean, obviously this isn't like an oven or something, but that, you know, that term appliance, I mean, like your furnace or something, you almost, I mean, most people never work on this stuff until the thing breaks down. Clock movements, however, you know, they generally will be serviced before they break down. And these advertising clocks, you know, from the 70s here, they're so late into the horological scope of manufacturing, mass production of electric clocks. I don't know. It's hard to say whether these are more clock or are they more just electric motor with a gear train. You know what I mean? I don't know. Does that make any sense? Like, does that explanation do any good at all? I don't know. It seems like they're not made to be messed with. They're not made to be regularly serviced. Especially this one. This has the cheap cardboard back, and then of course this with its tabs, that chrome rim. It looks nice, but yeah, there's that line between a clock movement that you're supposed to take care of and work on. I mean, if we compare, like, these are just some movements I got on the table. For those of you wondering, if you're watching this, the Plymouth Seth Thomas movement, this is waiting for some bushing equipment. That's what this is waiting for. Anyway, this is from 1942. This seems more like a clock that you're supposed to take care of, and Seth Thomas / Plymouth wanted you to take care of that. You know what I mean? It seems like this is more of a thing you work on, and of course any of these clocks, we'll show these in future videos. Any of these mechanical mantle clocks, you know, you wind up with a key. Those seem to be more in the ballpark of you take care of this and it's a family heirloom, etc. This just seems kind of like a cheap piece of advertising. Like a cheap piece of advertising. And you could say, well, Greg, you know, your Plymouth there and all the Telecron advertising clocks from the 40s and 50s, you know, what's all that? And what's all the Sessions, like, stuff? Is that all as cheap advertising too? It's hard to say. That line is so blurred. You know what I mean? It's a very blurry line, and it's hard to kind of put this in the category. I mean, obviously it's a clock, but it's hard to think about this in the frame of mind of, you know, this thing needs to be regularly worked on, like every 5 years or so. Actually, probably more, or yeah, less than. Wait, no, sorry, more than 5 years. Probably let's say every 10 years. Let's try that. Every decade, this style of clock probably needs a service every decade. You know, but people just left them and just ran them. And of course, Palm Dairies, you know, this clock has outlasted Palm Dairies. Its advertising life is over to some extent. I mean, it still says Palm Dairies on there. Or Palm, well, it doesn't say Dairies, it says Palm. That's their company logo. Boy, this is such a rant, you guys. The point I'm trying to make is this thing doesn't advertise anymore because the company's gone. Well, it's still advertising. Do you get what I'm saying, kind of deal? This outlasted the company. It's working life as an advertising clock in a grocery store or in a juke joint or in like a cafe or something. I don't know where this would have been originally. I don't have the story for this clock. But that life of being up on the wall and just advertising a product, that's over. And same with this guy over here. Even though the business is still open, they didn't want this anymore for some reason. Maybe they thought it was tacky looking. I don't know. I mean, those hands, you know, those hands seem to scream to me 1950s, not so much 1970s. Honestly, this thing looks like it's from the 60s, like late 60s, like 1965 probably at the earliest. And you know, I guess you could even argue even a little bit older because of these diamond shapes here. I mean, it's got characteristics of an older clock going on design-wise. And I guess you could argue that with this too. I mean, these hands are not something you'd see in the 1970s generally. I mean, look at those hands. Those are a very classic looking Those almost like are related to the Telechron clocks kind of deal. I don't know. That seems almost like a GE design or something. That's why when I first saw this, I thought it has to be from the 50s. I mean, look at the script font of the company logo, and you know, look at this ring and all that stuff. These clocks are kind of, honestly, they're kind of dated looking even when they were new. Like, this could probably fit in, like, I don't know, some cafe that's set in like the late 50s, early 60s, or some diner, sorry, set in the late 50s, early 60s. And this, you know, they both look dated for their eras. I mean, both basically mid to late 1970s. Both of these look dated for that. They do not look like they're modern pieces of advertising or whatever. I don't know. A 70s clock, I don't even want to imagine what that would look like. Modern 70s advertising clocks. Modern for the 70s. I know they exist. The Canadian Clock Museum has them, but they're pretty ugly looking. Can see why they disappeared. Anyway, yeah, it's just these are so interesting to me. The fact that they look dated, the company has nothing on it, and the company seems to have changed names, or this is a different branch of the firm or something like that. And you know, their movements, where the heck did they source those from? I'm still trying to figure out, like, the company that made those movements, and you know, they're all this stuff. It's very obscure. And this has to be one of a kind, because, you know, for a local business, this case and that, all the rest of it, that I've seen on ice cream advertising clocks, like the Palm Dairy one over there. I think there's one on eBay right now. It's like for velvet ice cream or something. It's literally this clock again with a different dial, and these numbers are different. So I don't know how long the firm was around for, and I keep calling it an advertising firm because it's not a clock company. They made signs that lit up, didn't light up, and electric clocks like this. So I've got a very small idea as to what these people did, as to what these people made for different companies. And clearly, somehow Bateman's Jewelers knew about this firm that, you know, that basically outsourced to their clock parts and then cooked up a case and a dial. They must have found out about these guys somehow and ordered this from them as probably a one or two of a kind. There might be another in existence. I don't know. I don't know for sure. But if it is out there somewhere, it's probably not in service. It's probably in the same condition this was in. But yeah, either way, I'm happy to have both of these. They look great with their seconds hands on them. They look great when they're lit up with LEDs. Yeah, they're fun. They're fun clocks, especially this one, because this is advertising ice cream, and of course this one is more of a shop, more of a, you know, for the bench and area. This is a total mess here. This is good for the bench area because, you know, Bateman Jewelers. It's it's advertising a jewelry jewelry store, jewelry shop. So who knows? Maybe you know, the modern business. I looked it up, and I've been outside the building. They don't service clocks, as far as I know. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but on the sign it does not mention clock repair. So maybe this thing just broke down on them. Maybe this was in the back somewhere. It broke down on them or whatever. You know, it stopped. They're thinking, okay, we'll just sell it to an antique dealer and be done with it, and not even try with it. And of course, that's how I got a hold of it. So that's a really nice piece of local history right there, from an obscure company that outsourced their clock parts. And yeah, and I guess the same could be said for the Palm Dairies one, except that is not a one of a kind. I've seen other pictures of these as I've been going along on my merry way on the internet. I haven't found any recent pictures of them though. All the ones I'm talking about were ones that I saw in 2019 when I serviced this, when I looked it up. I think there was one of these being auctioned off on some auction site, but of course I did bid on it or whatever because I already got this one. So the ads in the other ones seem to be, I mean, this seems to be the most faded one out there, which is unfortunate. I'm sure this looked much better when the ad was not faded, but that's okay. You can still read it, and that's all that really matters there. So anyway, I've rambled on for a lot, for a lot, but I've also rambled on long enough. These are fascinating. I don't know if I'll make a video on this firm. I don't know if I even can. I don't know if there's enough out there to document this. I'd almost have to go to Weston, Ontario and ask around about this thing. I'm sure people there remember this. I mean, there's no way that something like this existed and no one knew about it. You know what I mean? So, I'm sure there's a lot of these clocks in Weston. But, yeah, clearly they made it all over the country. Or at least in Saskatchewan anyway. They made it all the way here. So, that's terrific. On that note, you guys, I have talked long enough. You know how to work on these things now. If you ever run into a clock with a similar motor from a different brand, you're probably not going to get this brand, but that's okay. You know, I hope we all learned something. I don't know if I'll ever talk about these motors or this company again. I'll have to try and find what I can, you know, try and find out more about this company and find out more about the company that made the electric motors that drive the gear trains in these things. And what do you guys think? Are these things genuine clocks, or are they more of an electrical appliance? Does that, if that makes any sense? If I can frame that question in a way that makes sense. I don't know. Were these intended? Well, we all know they weren't intended to be worked on, but are they more of a clock? Do they share more of a clock history, or do they share more of an electrical kind of? I don't know how to word it. An electrical, we'll go with electrical appliance kind of idea with both of these. And which one do you like more? You know, that one's kind of more abstract looking at, well, not really abstract, you get what I mean though. It's different. And they got these diamond things in here. That's neat. Anyways, guys, I hope I've done a good job of covering both of these clocks, and I don't know if I'll talk about them ever again in their own video, but we shall see what the future holds. So, with that, thank you guys for following me throughout this series, and I thank you, especially the Watchworks. He gets a huge thanks for actually helping me wire this thing back up, helping me get the motor and gearboxes apart, and all that fun stuff there. So, he was good. He was a great help here. So, anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. I'm not sure what I'm going to sell here. I might sell this one. I don't know. But you'll definitely be seeing that one. That I'm not going to sell. You'll be seeing this in the background of future videos. And also, when I'm working here on this bench, this actually provides light, like down here. So the lighting has actually improved just by putting this thing up on the wall. It's brighter here now. So that's really nice. That's really handy. And also, when the basement's dark, this thing is a permanent nightlight. So, that's great. I always think that basements are nice places to put advertising clocks because, you know, there's no reason to leave a light on. But if you have one of these going, you know, it lights up at least a small area of the basement. You can see where you are and, you know, not fall over a chair or something, or over the console stereo or something like that. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Yeah, one more thing I forgot to mention. The threads on this seconds hand are damaged a little bit, so this thing won't tighten. And as I said, I'm not sure what the story is on if each movement has a different thread size for the seconds hand. Either way, I don't know. I might use some Loctite to get that on there. If this starts flopping all over the dial again, I'm going to use some kind of Loctite or something. But not a permanent, you know, fixer to the, or not a permanent adhesive, because I want to, you know, this is meant to be, well, sort of meant to be disassembled. And yeah, I don't want to be the guy permanently sealing this thing shut, and you have to break the seconds hand to even get the thing apart. No, that's not what I want to do. So yeah, we'll see what I can do with that seconds hand, and yeah.